Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about a Korean movie called Pandora. Jae and his friends grew up in a slow town near a nuclear power plant. He lives with his mother, sister and nephew. The construction of the nuclear power plant promised a better future for the city because it offers them work and stable living conditions. But it also took away other sources of livelihood such as tourism and fishing. Therefore, Jae and his friends have no choice but to work in the factory. He hates his job and is desperate to leave, but feels obligated to stay with his family. One day, he tells his girlfriend Yeon that he will leave the city to go abroad. This makes her angry with him because she has no one else in the town to trust but him. His mother is also against his plan, although she is also angry with the plant. Jae's father and the brother were also employees of the nuclear power plant. Both died as a result of the accident at the power plant. His mother sees Jae as an incompetent and lazy man because he lost his father's accident money when he used it to start a business. So she doesn't want him to go alone. Jae becomes angry and continues to work at the factory. During the shift, he decides to leave town and disappear. But who knew disaster was waiting for them? Meanwhile, the youthful and idealistic president Kang Sul reads a report from Hanbul Nuclear Power Plant Chief Engineer Park on Hanbul's safety and maintenance issues. The report is handed over directly by the president's wife, as many authorities are trying to bury, including the Prime Minister and his team. Knowing this, he invites the Prime Minister to challenge him on the report. The Prime Minister says he has rushed through the nuclear energy law to revive the country's economy and convinces the president that the government's resources will not be wasted arguing about the issue. Park was transferred to another location because he blew the vessels on the conditions of the facility. The disaster begins when a 6.1 magnitude earthquake shakes the city and damages the power plant. Jae calls her family to make sure they are okay. One of the valves is damaged and needs immediate repair. Park is worried about and goes back to assess the situation. But the other machine operator underestimates the situation. The engineers rush to repair the valve, but the pressure inside the pipe builds rapidly, causes the coarse coolant pipe to burst, injuring the engineer and leaking radiation. Jae sees the engineers being taken away, making him remember what happens to his father and brother. He wants to leave the factory immediately, but his friend does not want to allow him. So he finally decides to stay and help. Outside the city, the earthquake caused damage, but everyone survived with minor injuries. The Prime Minister wants to cover up the accident and keep the evacuation operation as small as possible to avoid national panic and mass chaos. But President Kang finds out and becomes angry. The Prime Minister's team assures him that the facility is equipped with control unit and will solve the problem soon. President Kang has no other choice but to agree. So they just notify nearby towns and quietly evacuated them. Jae's family and girlfriend board a bus and evacuate the town with other people. In the control room, the engineer panics. The pressure inside the containment building continues to build and will explode if they don't find a solution soon. They have to remove the air in the isolation building as it leaks radiation into the surroundings. The president decides to find ventilation and completes the evacuation process. Knowing this, the factory workers panic and leave their jobs. One of the engineers closes the exits and forces them to return to their station. The workers ignore him and try to get past the sealed door but fail. Due to this situation, Park decides to blow up the nuclear reaction in a counter order, but the system malfunctioned, forcing an engineer to manually open the vent. there is a nuclear meltdown at the station, and when the pressure reaches the limit, all hell breaks loose. A nuclear power plant explodes, but all the factory workers are killed in the explosion. But Jay escapes with minor injuries and helps his wounded friends out. On his way out, he meets Park and they try to go out together. The rescue team arrives at the factory, but the situation is dire. They cannot go near the facility because the radiation level is too high. The Prime Minister insists on covering up the explosion. His team denies to the media all rumors about the factory explosion. In the shelter, people begin to question the situation, whether to go further or not. Yan returns to the factory to see the real situation. She is shocked to see that the factory has already exploded, but is relieved to meet Jay outside the factory. But instead of leaving with her, Jay decides to go back to help the others despite the high radiation level. Yeon and the others try to stop him, but he insists. Park also returns and tells the rescue team to come closer. Later, they decide to approach the facility and spray the area with water to lower radiation level and pump coolant into the path of the nuclear fuel. Jay's friends are treated in the medical tent along with the other victims. Medical team cleans them with water before treatment to minimize radiation poisoning. Despite their efforts, the situation does not look good. Yeon returns to the shelter and informs Jay's family that he is fine, but lies about the whereabouts. He also tells other people about the real situation, which immediately makes them pack up and leave the shelter to move further away. But the authorities lock them up and block the phone signals in the area, preventing them from sharing the real situation with the rest of the nation. Jay helps the trapped workers until evening. His body cannot keep up with the radiation and he collapses. He is immediately rushed to the medical tent to receive treatment. The rescue team has run out of water, so they retreat to get more. Park wonders why they don't use seawater. He learns that headquarters has forbidden them from using seawater to prevent the power plant from shutting down. This angers him because the politicians still considered the functionalities of the power plant despite the situation. The radiation level begins to weaken the health of the rescue team. They are now exhausted and starting to show symptoms of radiation poisoning. The International Atomic Energy Agency receives information about the accident and alerts other international organizations. Foreign countries begin to evacuate their cities from Korea. The media begin covering the outbreak, leading to national panic and mass chaos. The entire nation begins to panic and move away from the blast area. Yeon discovers that the evacuation center has been abandoned by the authorities guarding them. Together, they break the lock gate and board the bus. A large amount of radiation leaked out of the facility, so they have to move on. The medical team also begins to leave the victims. Only a few brave people remain at the scene and continue to treat the victims. Jay wakes up and immediately tries to find his phone. He calls Yeon and directs her to take his family as far as she can and promises to follow them soon. The road is too congested, so Yoon has no choice but to drive in a different lane. But then they run into another traffic jam, forcing them to walk. Park is disappointed with the situation when he suddenly receives a call from the president. They begin to directly communicate and discuss the situation. Park suggests the president to use seawater to lower the radiation level. President Kang takes power and declares a state of emergency. He decides to shut down the facility and begins using seawater to spray the area. In addition, he orders the closure of all remaining nuclear power plants in Korea pending an assessment of the situation. The rescue team begins flooding the nuclear core with seawater, causing radiation level to drop. They have another problem. The coolant level in the fuel tank is low. The earthquake cracked the floor, causing coolant to leak out from under it. If the fuel line is in contact with air, it will cause a bigger explosion and more radiation will leak out. They have to seal the gap, but the space below is filled with the radiant water, making it a suicide mission for anyone try to close the gap. The president appears on television to announce the situation to the entire nation. He also asks for help from anyone who wants to volunteer in the suicide mission. Jay's friend sees this and suggests that his colleagues volunteer for the job. At the first, they resist the idea, But due to radiation poisoning, they know that they don't have much longer to live, so they decide to do it to save their family. Jay calls Yeon and tells her about his plan. He promises her that he will survive no matter what. But again, Yeon lies to Jay's family about his whereabouts. The group led by Park prepares for the task. They are giving the painkillers to ease the pain as the room is filled with radiant water. They only have 5-10 minutes each before their bodies give up. On the way, they see their destroyed city and remember the past there. Once inside the plant, they gather at the entrance to the room. They divide the team into several smaller groups and come in for 5-10 minutes shifts. If they cannot absorb the radiation, the next team continues the stoppage process. But suddenly, the crack widens and begins to burst. Their plan failed. They are about to abandon the plan when Jay proposes a radiation idea. They don't need to seal the crack. They need to block the entrance and break the ceiling so that the fuel line falls down and the room becomes another tank. They begin to implement the new plan, but it has one flaw. One of them must sacrifice himself after closing the entrance and detonate the bomb inside. Jay is the only person there who has the skill to handle explosives. He agrees to sacrifice himself and goes into the room. As he waits for the seal to end, the radiation affects his body. He takes a whole bottle of painkillers. He wants to call Yeon, but his phone has no service. He asks Park to request the president to pull him on TV so he can say goodbye to his family. Yeon gets word that Jay is on TV, so they get on a nearby bus and follow him from there. He says his final goodbye to his family and apologizes to Yeon for not being able to keep his promise. This scene is so emotional, as in one line he says he doesn't want to die like this. He is so scared. After finishing the sealing, the rest of the team goes outside and Jay detonates the bomb. His sacrifice is not availed because his plan worked. Over the next few days, the rest of the group die one by one from radiation poisoning. President Kang declares them national heroes. So now the question arises whether they raise their next generation in a rich world or a safe and comfortable world. Thank you for watching this video. If you like it, please like and share and subscribe to this channel. Until next time, take care.